I asked him today to come and talk, and he's going to talk about being in the cloud, loving and hating it. Here you go. Justin Huff.
Thanks, Jesse. Justin Huff from Picnic. What is Picnic? It's not some place you go with in a park and a blanket and have a picnic lunch. No, Picnic's actually an online editor, a photo editor. It lives completely in your browser. We're all Flash-based. We're kind of trying to hit the medium to low market. We aren't trying to be Photoshop. That's okay. But we do have a lot of advanced features. We have lots of users. Perhaps lots of them are 16-year-old girls, but they love us a lot, and that's okay. We've been using AWS for about 2 years in testing. We've been in full production for about 1.5 years with it. And it's not always gone well. There's been things that we really like about it, things we haven't liked about it, and that's kind of what I'm trying to talk about today. We're a hybrid application. We have a data center. We have a small rack in Seattle, or small cage in Seattle, excuse me. But we also use S3 and EC2 for various parts of our infrastructure. And I don't see us changing that. We may reduce some of our cloud use. We may expand in some areas. But for the most part, we're always going to have servers. We're always going to have our racks. We're going to be growing, and it's going to be good. But I think this is something that most applications aren't talking about, these hybrid type things. A lot of press around cloud computing are putting everything in the cloud, and everything's there, and it's glorious, and it's good, and everyone loves it. And it can work out that way, and it may not. We like flexibility with the cloud. That's the big mantra, right? That's why there's conferences about cloud computing. We like it. Yeah, it works out. For example, when a user saves in Picnic, they do what we call a render operation. So we have to reconstruct that image on our server. It's rather compute intensive, and it also follows a really nice 24-hour cycle. So we build our servers for average capacity. And anything above and beyond that, we let EC2 take care of. We scale out. The whole thing is queue-based. Queues are wonderful, just to echo John. It allows you to, it's a nice scaling point. So the EC2 works out beautifully in those cases. I like to do capacity management. It's different than capacity planning. I can repurpose existing resources in my network. So I have a bunch of web servers. Everything's virtualized anyway, so I can dynamically allocate cores between doing render jobs and doing web serving jobs, which is really nice because that means I can control my hardware purchasing in a sensible way. I can buy hardware in batches, which means we're going to get a better deal, and I can also grow logically. Rather than popping in a new cabinet and filling it with 2 machines because I ran out of power in the one next door, I can actually wait until I'm ready to throw 10 servers in that machine or go to 50% utilization on the power. And that keeps me from having to spend, have these partial filled cabinets all over. Let's talk about storage a little bit. We're heavy users of S3. At one point, we nearly hit 1 billion objects stored in S3. So we started with this nice 4-step process. First, we're going to move all of our old files out to S3. That's fine. Anything over a month, it's probably pretty cold. We'll let them deal with it. Bulk storage, it's pretty cheap. It's 10 cents a gig. And we said, oh, OK, this is cool. We'll put some new files on there. We have a nice knob. We like our levers as well as everyone else in the ops space. So we have this percentage that I can control that says what percentage of files are going out to S3 directly. Eventually, that hit about 98%. Of course, step 4 is profit. And, well, didn't quite get there. Most of our users are guest users. You don't have to create an account to use Picnic. We create you a new guest account. So you get a user record, and you can store files, and everything's fine and dandy. These files live for about a day, which means that we have a lot of files to delete. And it turns out this causes lots of problems. Mainly, if you're doing that, you have to have a really good deletion process. We didn't. We were deleting files, and we really weren't keeping up with how many files we should be deleting, leading to some very upward and to the right graphs. So what did we do about this problem? We came up with a very innovative solution. I think we like it. We actually ignored it. We completely ignored the problem. We knew it was there. We knew it was costing us money. But, you know, we had other stuff to do. We were adding features. We were fixing other problems. You know, in ops, it's really, really nice to not have to worry about a problem someday. I can focus on scaling my databases. You know, at the same time, I was dealing with database sharding. We were rolling out all that code. We were scaling our web front ends. We were rebuilding our network, expanding. I didn't have to worry about storage. And of course, we're a small team. I'm basically, we have 1.5 ops people, until it got too expensive. At some point, we started getting free airline tickets in the mail from all the miles that we were getting on our credit card. And that was the wake-up call where the ownership meeting comes in and they're like, hey, we need to solve this problem and we need to solve it last week because we're getting eaten alive. So we'll move into the lessons section of this, like the poor little white kitty. So your network probably looks something like this for a large percentage of the audience. Maybe not everyone, Google, Flickr, Twitter. You know, you have a bunch of servers, you're sitting on some switches, maybe you're doing some layer 3 routing, maybe a firewall load balancer. The important thing is that latency is pretty consistent across your network. It's predictable. We all understand how it works. You can probably rattle off the layer 2 path between any two servers relatively quickly. That's your network when you're using the cloud and a hybrid application. That's the internet circa 2005. Your servers are going to be, you know, someplace way up in one corner, and your hosting servers or your cloud servers are going to be elsewhere. And in the middle, unbeknownst to you, there's a little girl standing up in a rack about ready to unplug some fiber. It happens, and it's bit us a number of times. Clouds are distributed systems. There's no way around this fact. You have to learn to embrace that, and you have to know how to deal with that. So clouds are bigger than you are. There's other customers involved, and that means that you aren't you don't control the schedule at which new features are deployed. You don't control interactions and other problems. They're a bigger denial of service target. So that's something to keep in mind. We're very fortunate that, partly because we started spending so much money with Amazon, we got a senior account rep very early on in the process, and that has been immensely useful to helping us navigate their idiosyncrasies and other issues, and that's been phenomenal. And they're complicated. You're now all of a sudden adding all these additional layers of communication, of protocol, of software between you and the work you want to get done. So you need to be ready for fail. It's going to happen. Be ready to deal with it. In our case, we have a variable that's picnic offline %. Typically, it's 0. But if EC2 goes down, we don't have the capacity to handle that load. So we have to take the site down, because if people can't save with picnic, the last thing you want to let them do is get 30 minutes into an intense editing session and then tell them no. It's bad for users. You also need to be ready for hard debugging. When you're dealing with that complicated network, things can happen, you know, in Chicago that affects you in Seattle and other stuff in Virginia, and you have to be able to route around that. In our case, when we've had those issues, we've been able to work some BGP magic with our transit providers, and we were able to move traffic off those affected links. That's not always possible. This is where monitoring is really important. I'm able to identify a lot of these problems because I have smoke ping running different angles on our network and our cloud providers. So I'm able to tell when something is not normal. But most importantly, clouds are flexible. Clouds allow you to do things. Clouds allow you to ignore problems. We've been reasonably happy with it. I don't see us changing that part of our operations anytime soon. That's why we're here. Just don't be lazy. Thank you very much.